There's this term you have used, fast food pest control. What does that mean in practice?
When rodents make their way into the home, they eat the rodenticides, they start
Mm.
dying in your walls, your insulation, and there's your breeding ground for clothing moths and carpet beetles.
Welcome back to Pest Radio, the podcast where we sit down with the owners, operators, and leaders shaping the pest control industry. I'm Faye Cebioglu, founder of Digital Karma. We help pest controls companies build marketing systems that generate consistent leads and long-term growth. Today's guest came into the industry in a way he probably never planned, but ended up building a business shaped by his values and the experiences along the way. His journey includes unexpected career shifts, early setbacks, and a clear focus on doing things differently, especially when it comes to solving problems and educating customers rather than rushing through jobs. So, joining us today is Jim Horton, owner of Quality Pro Pest and Wildlife Services. Jim has built a reputation for combining wildlife experience with a highly hands-on education first approach to pest control. While many companies focus on speed and volume, Jim's approach has been about understanding the root that cause and doing the job the right way. So, Jim, welcome to the Pest Radio and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. Every business has a starting point, but yours didn't begin it with a clear path, clear plan. You all through different jobs, unexpected moments, and decisions that eventually push you into the pest control industry. So before pest control, you had a pretty diverse career path. What did those early jobs teach you about work and people?
Oh, those early jobs taught me, like I explained, jack of all trades, master of none. So from working at a hardware store and driving a taxi, limo, to driving big trucks and working on boilers and delivering oil, and then going to installing appliances and stuff like that. So I guess it kind of gave me the sense of how to MacGyver things a lot and get things done, because not every appliance install is just, okay, I'm opening a box and putting it in place and leaving.
Mhm.
It's, making it fit. Do I have to cut something a little bit here? The plumbing, do I need to wire something different this way? So on and so forth. Hardware store, people come in all the time, asking for tools to how to do this, how to do that. So I have to try and show them what to do and what tools to use. So
And
basically a little learning here and there, and here I am.
And also, as a driver, you communicated with a lot of different people. So I'm sure it also helps you to understand people, sometimes deal with people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, constantly helping people with their problems. Now, the wildlife side of my business, I help wildlife with their people problems, as I say. And then I help people with their pest problems.
So what makes you that ended up changing your direction? What happened?
So, a company that I worked for, my last job before I got into this industry was delivering and installing appliances. And the first red flag with the company was the truck broke down, the throttle cable snapped, and again, here comes MacGyvering into the picture. Instead of having my boss have to pay a $400 towing bill, I took a pair of vice grips and I pulled the throttle cable together and I held it together with a pair of vice grips. And I got the truck back to the shop slowly, but I got it back. And the owner of the company basically accused me of cutting the throttle cable, accusing me of, you just didn't want to work anymore today, that's why you cut the throttle cable. I was like, no, I didn't do that. I just saved you $400 towing bill. Come on, give me a break. And then the next thing, which was the straw that broke the camel's back, they tried to have me deliver a cosmetically damaged in the window air conditioner to a blind lady.
Mhm.
And when I pointed out it's damaged, and their response was, well, she's not going to see it. And at that
Mhm.
point, I was like, I'm done. I can't work for somebody like that anymore. So I looked in the penny saver for another job, and I found an ad that said handyman. Didn't say anything about pest control, didn't say anything about wildlife work. It just said handyman. So I went for the interview,
Mm-hmm.
and my boss said the handyman comes into play with fixing holes that animals make when they break into homes and stuff like that. So that intrigued me. I mean, if it was just pest control, I probably would not have done it. I was like, I don't want to be an exterminator, you know. But the
Mm-hmm.
wildlife always intrigued me, so I started it and worked for him for a couple of years, and then he ended up selling to another company. And before he sold, he let me go. He fired me. No reason, no nothing. I didn't know he was selling, but I found out later on. And he said later on, when I had seen him a couple years later, he's like, "Do you know why I fired you?" And I was like, "No, you never gave me a reason." He goes, "I fired you because you were too smart." He goes, "I was afraid you were going to figure out what I was doing and take some of my customers, And of
Mm.
course, if you're doing an acquisition, you want to retain your customers." So I was like, I never would have done that to them. That's not who I am. That's not how I operate. So after that, when he fired me, I went and worked for a guy who had just purchased another company, a family owned company. And I worked for him for about, I think it was 8 months or so. And we were scheduling our own jobs, doing our own billing and everything. And I was like, if I'm going to be doing this for you, that you should have a CSR be doing, I'm going to do this for myself. So I went out on my own, and it was pretty scary in the beginning, where am I going to get my next customer? Am I going to, make my mortgage payment? Am I going to, where am I going to get all this money that I need to pay these bills? So, but, I focused on doing the right thing. Back then when I started, we didn't really have Facebook or anything like that. Did the right thing. Word got out like, hey, call this guy. He's really good. And
Mm-hmm.
and now most of my work comes from word of mouth. All these Facebook groups,
Mm-hmm.
you know, moms groups, parents of Westchester, stuff like that. Where our media spend is very small. We don't
Mm-hmm.
really. I don't think I could handle if I all the work we would get if I advertised like most people
Mm-hmm.
do.
And you said wildlife came first for you. Where did that interest start?
So I'm Canadian. I was born
Uh-huh.
in Montreal. I became a citizen down here actually only 3 years ago. My mom moved me down here when I was 11, just turning 12. And my backyard, where we moved to, was 5,000 square acres of reserve. So my backyard was all woods and wildlife and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I was never like a fur trapper, or I didn't trap animals to kill them or anything like that. I just loved wildlife. Like, there was a snake, I was grabbing it, picking it up, seeing what kind of snake it was. Genuine interest in wildlife. I remember the first time I got bit by a muskrat. I picked up the muskrat and it bit me. And back then, I didn't know anything about rabies. I was young, so and my mom didn't even think about it either. So thank God the thing wasn't rabid. But that was a learning experience. And there was one time actually I grabbed a copperhead, which is a venomous snake, and
Mm-hmm.
I was showing my mom, and she's like, "That's a poisonous snake," and I was like, "Okay," so I tossed it away. Thank God I didn't get bit by that, you know. But yeah, that was
So it was
that was
like
my
an
thinking.
interest coming from your childhood.
Yep, yep. But again, that was offset. We moved from that area. We moved to, a town called Harrison, and there's not many woods there. So that's when I got into, driving taxi and working at a hardware store and all that stuff.
And your story is that Quality Pro wasn't just about starting a business. It was about also building something that operated differently based on what you had seen, wasn't working in the industry. Let's talk about that, Luffy. So when you started Quality Pro, what did you want it to stand for?
So, I mean, we'll go back to my first job in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
pest, and it was a company called Precise Pest Control. And my
Mm-hmm.
boss's name was Dave, and he was a military background,
Mm-hmm.
and it was by the book and do it right. And we dealt with a lot of exclusion work. So
Mm-hmm.
you know I learned from him, but then took it further, where we really want to try and solve the customer's problem as far as wildlife goes. Insects, you have to do maintenance. They can come in any little thing. You have to keep up the residual barriers and stuff like that. But investigation work, finding those rodent entry points, the rub marks, and the fact that mice can scale a brick chimney and go in a roof
Mm-hmm.
line, or a tree that's touching a roof line. Finding those entry points and solving their problems. That was really the passion for me. Getting that family of raccoons out of an attic, excluding bats. It really made me feel good to be able to help people, and solve their problems. So it's because of that first job he taught me right, and I'm thankful that I worked for a company like that and a gentleman like that did the right thing. So I learned right with my first job.
So there's this term you use, fast food pest control or wildlife control. What does that mean in practice?
I mean, that's my saying. I'm not that company where we just run into the attic, throw rodenticides, spray the baseboards really quick, and get out of there. We're de-webbing, we're putting treatment down, we're advising the client, hey, we see this, we see that. So fast food pest control, it's we're in there, we're taking a little longer in a client's home and paying attention and making sure stuff's not going to happen. And that's where, when I first started my company, I was, and this was a big selling point for me, is doing monthlies, because I was telling the clients, if you're on a quarterly,
Mm-hmm.
you're being more reactive to problems, because problems are happening while we're not there for a few months,
Yeah.
and it can get out of hand. So I prefer monthlies because I'm being more proactive than reactive to your issues. I'm seeing stuff right away, at the beginning stages, if something's going to happen, keeping residual up around the foundations and stuff like that. And going into throwing rodenticides in attics and basements, and I've seen over the past few years where the mindset has changed, where there's no more rodent boxes around the outside of the structure. Everything's inside, which, when rodents make their way into the home, they eat the rodenticides, they start dying in your walls, your insulation, and there's your breeding ground for clothing moths and carpet beetles,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. And that's another big issue that we've been running into the past few years because of this mindset change. We are doing so many clothing moth jobs. It's incredible. And it's always going behind other companies that have been just throwing rodenticides out in the house. You know,
Just short-term solutions.
it's really not short-term solutions. It's get in, get out quick is their mindset. So it's really quick to throw.
Actually, it's not a solution like you mentioned. It also creates a different problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 And again, that's where we get a lot of clients from as well, because we're going behind, some other companies that are doing that. And I think it needs to change, you know. Rodenticide use inside a structure is no good in my book. We don't do it.
So how do you balance that? I know there are a lot of fast food companies in your area. So, and I heard you are not the only one. I hear these stories, by the way. There are other pest
Yeah.
control owners that also don't like it because, there's just like stop 30 spots per day, pressure. So how do you balance it? Yeah.
Yeah, it gets difficult. And this is where, as I grow, I do see why and how these companies are operating, because they're more concerned about numbers now, and they want to have growth, and the
Hmm.
revenue has to be where it needs to be. And if a technician is spending too much time in a structure, their revenue goes down. So It's just, I tell my guys, you got to do the right thing. Obviously, hurry up, but do the right thing. Clean up. We go in behind companies, and I can't count how many dumpster full of rodent boxes we've thrown away from other companies. Because when we go in, we clean everything out. All the, we find glue boards with skeletons on them, and we document all this stuff too. We take photos and we show the client, when's the last time your current exterminator was here. Okay, well, if he was just here last week, then why am I finding all these skeletons with clothing moth larvae all throughout the carcass? So it's pointing out. I mean, I hate to do it, hey, this guy's not doing the right thing, but this is what we would do differently for you. We would take out all the rodenticides out of the house, so this, kind of stops a little bit. We use mechanical traps, that way we know where the bodies are as far as mice go. We're taking them away right away. And again, we do our inspection for exclusion, and we offer them a solution, so that all they really need us for is the insect side of the pest control, not rodents.
And what about pricing? I'm sure it's also um, competing with the pricing it must be challenging because they don't spend as much as time you spend there. And so
Well,
that, yeah.
I'll tell everybody, and I just had this conversation yesterday we did an inspection, and fun fact, I just found this out yesterday, and I've been going to this structure for emergency bat removals for years. Middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a bat flying around. And I just found out it's the largest fieldstone building in North America. Huge, huge structure. And they're looking to switch from a local company that is here, Food Pest Control. And I told them, I said, if you're looking for the cheapest guy, I'm not your guy.
Hmm.
If you just want me there to sign that piece of paper for the health department for the littlest amount of money, I'm not your guy.
Hmm.
But they were calling around because they were not happy with, what the service that they were getting. So I pointed out all kinds of stuff. This is what we would do differently, and it seems like they're very interested in our service. Hopefully, we win the bid. But that's what I'll tell a lot of people. Like, we are a little more money. You may spend a lot of money up front, but in the long run, it's gonna save you a lot of, thank you. It's gonna save you a lot of
Ex
future headaches.
uh,
You're not gonna get those clothing moths, carpet beetles, but carpet beetles you can possibly get. You can get that from hair buildup behind your
hmm.
bedboard and stuff. So, but and they see it. They see it. And a lot of people, say, hey, that's way too much, and okay, we can go onto a maintenance program for you and keep it under control. We
Hmm.
have a lot of those. But yeah, I love solving their problems.
You have now a growing team in the field. What's been the hardest about maintaining consistency?
That's where, like I said, I see how these other bigger companies, I start to feel what they're going through, because
Hmm.
the bigger we get, the more employees we get, the more we have to train, and this technician missed something, and it's like, I want to get it fixed right away. If a client calls me up with a problem, it's fixed right away. We are on top of it. You're not going to wait 2 to 3 weeks for a technician to come out there. It gets fixed. But yes, I do see the problem with hiring multiple techs and having to make sure that everybody's doing the right thing according to our standards, you know? So it's tough. It is. It's really tough.
How do you
I
train
think
them?
we do in-house training. Actually, Friday we have Target Specialty. We have somebody coming in to do a talk on rodents, stuff like that. We are a member of NACOA, National Wildlife
Hmm.
Control Operators Association. So we do some online training with that. We have a training room downstairs. It's in the winter time, every week there's training from Target Specialty on different insects, rodents, etc. So it's ongoing training. We have a mock-up in our warehouse where we work on exclusion training, sealing eaves and gable vents and
How long
you
does
know.
it take to train in your company? I'm not asking generally. In your company, how long does it take to train a pest control technician and wildlife technician to do their jobs by themselves?
Usually, we do their 8-hour course,
Hmm.
so they can become an apprentice, and then they will go out with me for a few days. I like to see, I would get their disposition. Are they really into this, or do they want to just get a paycheck and go home? You know,
Hmm.
we want to make sure you want to be here. And I've told all my technicians and staff, if you're not happy here, I really don't want you here. You have to want to be here
And what do you
back
look
in the
for
South.
when hiring technicians beyond technical skills?
Beyond technical skills, you want them to ask questions. You want them to want to know what to do. Are they going to take initiative? Do they have common sense? Sense is a rare commodity these days, I think. So, do they have the capacity to MacGyver things, as I always say? You know, we have people that come here and they work harder at not working than actually doing the job, I say. So, if they just sat down and just did the job, it would get done a lot faster. It's always some guys will come back and be like, I couldn't get it done. I was like, well, did you try this? Oh, I didn't think of that. I'm always here to help them and get them better. I have operations manager. She helps out a lot. I got a field manager. He's pretty good as well. We actually have a technician. Lewis has been with us 12 years,
Long time.
and he just had triplets.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's out on maternity leave. He should be back in a couple weeks. So because he's been out, my service manager has been, in the field a lot, helping out. The way I hired him, that was when I was solo, and he was actually helping his uncle install windows in my house. And I asked his uncle, I was like, do you know anybody that needs a job? I need a helper. And he was like, yeah, my nephew here is looking for a job on the books. And I was like, I watched him all day do work here. He's hired immediately, you know, and he's been with me for 12 years. So it's good.
The, and what is a pest issue most homeowners completely miss, or wildlife issue, but you see often?
That they miss. So in this area, and I tell a lot of people this, people are so busy here that they don't look at their homes.
Hmm.
They get done with their day, they pull in the garage, and they walk into their dining room or kitchen, they eat, they go up to the room, they read their book, whatever, go to their office, and go to bed. They don't look around their house a lot. And just so many things happen. I point out, you see what these reddish brown marks are going up the wall in your boiler room or your basement if it's unfinished. And I'm like, these are rodent rub marks.
Hmm.
And they're like, I never knew I had mice. I was like, and I'll pull down a piece of insulation and a whole bunch of acorns fall out. It's stuff like that. People need to look at their investment a little more. Look at it, walk around, enjoy it, and see if something is going wrong. But yeah, they'll call me for one thing, and I'll find. Take for instance, yesterday I went for a snake inspection. First thing
Hmm.
is, I didn't even pull in the driveway yet, and I noticed that 3 louvers on her gable vent was missing,
Hmm.
and there was a bunch of sparrows around the house. So as I'm walking up the door, I'm looking. I'm like, okay, there's a bird nest in the gable vent. There's a bird nest on the dormer eave on the over the garage. The customer had no clue. She had no clue. She was like, "Oh, is that why I hear birds a lot? When I'm
Oh.
up in my room." And we went up in her attic, and she had spray foam insulation on the roof deck. And I look, and I can see a whole bunch of bird nesting material. They actually pecked through from the gable vent. They pecked through the spray foam insulation, and the nesting material was just falling all over the floor. She had no clue. And she said, she goes, I hear noise a little bit up here. And when I was downstairs for the snake inspection, because they saw a little snake in the basement, there was no evidence of mice in the basement. But up in the attic, there was tons of mouse droppings and stuff. So I went outside and I looked, and there's a tree touching the front right corner of the house on the side of the attic where there's a whole bunch of mouse droppings. And I was like, yeah, the mice are climbing up this tree, going onto your roof and going into this dormer eave. And that's why you see the little pieces of foam on the floor right underneath this area, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She had no clue. Yeah, it's fun to point stuff out to homeowners. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming because I find a lot of stuff sometimes, and they're like, "Oh my God, there's so much to do here. What? I can't afford all this." Well, you can do it in stages if you want. You know, what do you not want here first? We'll take care of it.
But you're 100% right. You invest and buy a house, you pay mortgage, but you
Yeah,
don't take care of it, and you have no
yeah,
idea what it will cost you if you don't take care of it. If
yeah,
you know things like 5 years ago, maybe you wouldn't need to pay these amounts.
yeah. And that's why, I mean, I have a small little house here.
Uh-huh.
Because I know I'm so busy that I'm not going to be able to maintain a huge house here. And that's what I see a lot as well, is a lot of people will buy these huge McMansions, but they actually can't afford the maintenance for them. So wood starts rotting, window screens are falling out and laying in the bushes. It's like this is a beautiful house and it's rotting, you know. Fix it. Maintain it. So
My other question is, what do you look at people when you are hiring someone to answer the phones? Customer service.
see, I usually leave that up to my wife. But that's another thing I like to touch on. One of the best things that ever happened to me was my wife got fired.
Oh, okay.
I say that all the time. But she was a paralegal for 20 something years, and
Uh-huh.
her boss actually retired, and the new trustee that took over pretty much let everybody go. And so she came here and was full time here. She helped me before that with billing and stuff like that, but yeah, full time. It was great. And that's where I changed as well, is when I did hire somebody to answer phones, because I'll be on a roof, I'll be on a ladder, I'll be in a crawl space, and
Mm-hmm,
somebody's
mm-hmm.
calling for help, and it takes a lot of time out of your day. And I've told some of the colleagues of mine that are solo, and I'm like, you need to hire somebody. You need to hire somebody to answer your phones for you. That way you'll get more work done, more revenue will come in. You'll see that jump, and it'll just take off from there. Then you'll hire your next one because she's overwhelmed, and next thing you're looking for a manager. But yeah, when we hire, we look to make sure they're people that know how to talk nicely to people, that are care for our customers. I hear
Mm-hmm.
all the time in my office, oh, this sweet little guy called up. He's got an issue with thing. I can't wait to help him. I like hearing that.
So you create a company culture.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, gotta
And
love what we do.
yeah, exactly. And after years of building and working in the field, you start to see, I'm sure, patterns, what works, what does not work, and what actually drives growth. So I want to a little bit talk about this and what separates pest control companies that grow consistently from those that plateau.
I mean, plateauing is. I had somebody say the other day that we were in a plateau, and I was like, no, we're not. We usually consistently have about 30% growth. Ever
Mhm.
since I kind of made that switch from being solo and hiring somebody, and taking off from there, it's been consistent 30% growth from there. But yeah, I mean, you just gotta do the right thing. I mean, I've seen people that I know in the industry that they call me and they're like, how come I'm not getting any calls? Well, you don't answer the phone after hours. You don't, you're too expensive. You're astronomical with your pricing. You're hitting a home run, yeah, here, but you kind of have to be consistent. And people, again, going back to like Facebook groups and stuff like
Mhm.
that, people will say, hey, this guy's a little expensive. but this guy does the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's fairly priced. That's what I see remarks about me. Yeah, Jim Horton is great. Quality Pro is great. He's fair with his pricing, and I tell people that all the time. I'm not the cheapest, I'm not the most expensive. So, yeah, the biggest thing is you got to do the right thing by people and you will grow. It's just organically, you will grow.
What is a mistake you see owners repeat again and again?
Same thing. Not answering your phones, not arguing with people, being arrogant. People feel that. If you're genuinely there, they know you're genuinely there to help them. They appreciate that. I don't ask people to give me reviews. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let me back up. We do. We have an applause now, and when we're done, hey, did we do a great job? Give the technician a rating. But I don't ask a customer there like, hey, it would really help us out. Give me a good review. I don't say that to customers. I've had people say, hey, I'll give you a good review that I haven't worked for. And I'm like, nope, it has to be a genuine review. I don't, and there's other people around here that do that and that argue with customers if something goes wrong or it's immediate. I don't know if it's a defensive thing, but they'll call out the customer online. They've had their Google reviews removed and their listings removed and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. That stuff would kill my heart if something like that helped me. I I get upset when a customer is not happy with our service and I need to fix it right away. I gotta fix it. I almost want to do the job for free if you're unhappy. That's how
Mm-hmm.
I am. So
And what is something you had to learn the hard way that most owners could benefit from early stage?
learn the hard way was, I mean, again, going into staying solo for so long,
Answering the
trying
calls by yourself.
trying to do it all yourself it was tough. Not in the beginning, it was great, but when I really started getting busy, that was tough. But learning, toughest thing I learned, I learn every day in this industry. I've been doing this for 27 years. I learn something new every day. And just when you think you know everything, an insect or wildlife will teach you something different. you know, it's amazing.
If a young technician told you they want to start their own company someday, what would you tell them? A very young technician, just right into the industry, early stage.
Yeah, start and do the right thing. Just be passionate. Don't treat it as, I mean, we're all here to make money, but you have to have passion for it. You gotta love what you do, and you'll grow. It's gonna come to you. But if you don't have the common sense, if you don't have the MacGyvering, I see people in this industry that will do wildlife work, but they're actually afraid of animals. It's not good to be like that. I actually do work at a wolf conservation center. I do their captures for them. So I'm the crazy one that'll crawl into a wolf den and pull it out because we have to do their physicals every year. Actually, next week, the 24th, I believe it is, I have to do a pup check. So the wolf center here had one pup this year. So we have to capture that one pup and we have to do a physical on it. So, but yeah, I'm the one that crawls in there and pulls them out and does all that stuff. They asked me, they're like, how do you know how to do this? And I was like, it's just years of doing it and reading the animals and seeing,
Hmm.
okay, if I move this way, the animals are going to move that way. If I do this, the animal's going to do that. And I mean, I've got videos and they're like, how did you catch that bat out of the air? And I'm like, I just read how that bat is flying. I'm getting his pattern. And I
Hmm.
just reach out and obviously with a gloved hand and I'll reach out and I'll grab the bat. And they're like, I can't believe you did that. I reading the animals. You got to read the animals. But if you're afraid of it, you're not going to be able to read the animals because you're thinking, I'm scared. What am I going to do? I've had a guy with me for 8 years now, and to this day, he's still, when it comes to wildlife, I can see that he is afraid. He says no, he's not, but I can tell he is. You see it. And again, dealing with people all these years, you get kind of get to read people and how they are, and that comes in with, like, I'm not a major salesman. I'm not the kind of guy that will sell you something you don't need. And if I went to work for a company right now and they're like, okay, you got to sell this car, and you need to sell X amount of this car, and you need to, I can't do that. I can't just push something on somebody that, hey, you don't need this $100,000 truck. You could buy a Nissan for half the price, and you'll be fine. If it's something the client needs, this is what you need to stop this. I'm here for you. This is what I can do. This is what it's going to cost. I got no problem doing that, as selling that way. But yeah, when it comes to like pressure sales or scare tactics, yeah, I'm not like that. I can't do that.
And what principle has stayed with you through every stage of your journey, from the starting to this point?
I'll go back to doing the right thing.
Yeah,
Be honest. Do the right thing. Don't lie to people. Just help them.
I think it's the
Help them when it
general
comes.
general thing. It's not about the industry. You
Yeah,
also give me the. I also
it's
told the
life.
story about air conditioner with the blind lady. So yeah,
Yeah,
same
yeah,
with the every industry.
yeah. Karma. I believe in karma. You do the right thing, right things will come to you. You do the bad things will happen to you.
I believe in karma too. My company name is Digital Karma.
Digital karma. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for today, for sharing your story. And what stands out is that your path was not linear, but it was intentional. And you built something by paying attention to what wasn't working and choosing to do things differently and always doing the right thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And even when that wasn't the easiest path. Thank you for your genuine sharing also.
You're welcome.